Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. And I guess this is our biggest one of the season so far. Not only do we have the top two on today, but they've also got a double game week right ahead of them as well. Firstly, let me introduce you to our Arsenal correspondent, Adam Pritchard. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing very well, thanks, James.
Good man. And our Manchester City correspondent, Jonny Pringle. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, James. Could get tasty this one, couldn't it?
I think so. And normally I'd start with the home team, but I think we need to touch on obviously the news this week. Me and Suj will do a podcast on what's going on with City off the field next week. The reason we haven't this week, as many people keep badgering me, is Suj has been away most of this week. But Jonny, as a Manchester City fan, how do you feel about the news about these alleged charges?
Just can't be arsed with it all again, really. I tweeted the other day, I don't want to have a law degree to support my own football team. Obviously, it's cropped up once already with the UEFA stuff, and we thought it had gone away, expecting it might come back. It has come back. And yeah, we've just got to go through it all again. Just rumbling on, finding out what happens with court cases and other fans just, finding us guilty already. Talk about tainted titles. Obviously, all this talk about relegation and stripping titles in the past. You've got to put up with all that shit. Being labelled cheats. Nothing we do while this rumbles on will be seen as legitimate. Having to argue with people about the FFP fundamentally. Just the whole thing. It's a drain on football supporters, and yeah, like I say, just can't be arsed with it. Really, is the overriding feeling.
I get that. The obviously, look, fans are going to pile in, unfortunately, mate. Are you worried? Is probably more the question.
Yeah, I mean, how can't you be? I mean, the allegations are obviously huge. Again, going back, part of the things I can't be arsed with is just the number of journalists who aren't informed on the situation, just writing clickbait articles like this is what the punishment could be, blah blah blah. When you listen to the people who actually know about it, the allegations, like I say, are very serious. And yeah, if they turn out to be true, then yeah, we're going to be in some deep shit, and some of the sort of fallout from it could be wider than what people think might happen in just punch deductions. I think there's a political aspect to it as well. So yeah, I think you and Sudge are going to go into it deeper, but yeah, it is worrying.
Adam, how do you see it I know you're kind of obviously in competition with City right now, but as a neutral, how are you looking in on it from the outside? Are you like throw the book at them? Or, I mean, how do you feel about the prospect of them being stripped previous titles? It's something that doesn't sit comfortable with me, even though there might be an element of foul play. Or more of an element.
It's an interesting one. Like, I don't think the stripping of previous titles will happen, to be honest. So it's not really something I haven't really put too much thought into that. In terms of my perspective on it, like, I do get what Jonny was saying, and there is an element of like he's saying, fans shouldn't have to be lawyers in order to support their team. It's just not really something that is kind of almost fair on them. But yeah, no, I think if they've been found to be breaking as many rules as they have been charged with, I think they have to be punished, and they have to be punished severely, because otherwise, what's the point of having rules? And I also think it's probably important, and I don't know if there is an element of this with the Premier League coming out with these charges, is to set a precedent. Because if Man City have been doing this, obviously, with their ownership, you can bet Newcastle would probably be interested in doing so. And the kind of recent reports that there may be Qatari interest in Man United. So if that takeover were to happen, then you can't have three clubs in the league potentially breaking or allegedly breaking financial rules. So I think it's important to set a precedent for sure. And yeah, like I say, I think anything that happens probably won't happen this season. Like, I'd be surprised if they wrapped it all up by the end of the season and the points deduction meant Arsenal won the title. So I don't really think we'll gain much of an advantage from it. But no, I think I think it's quite a systemically important moment for the Premier League as well. Obviously, and I'm sure you and Sid will go into more detail about it, but like the government delaying their kind of recommendations for football regulations that I think was supposed to come out this week. I think the Premier League are probably trying to show that they can regulate themselves to a certain extent. But yeah, no, like I say, I think it's important to punish teams that break rules, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, there is that timing of it's quite interesting from the Premier League perspective. That it does seem a little bit ironic that was coming out, and okay, yeah, we are onto things, because obviously this dates back obviously so long. Do you agree, Johnny, with Adam's opinion that nothing's likely to happen in terms of definitive in the next couple of months before the end of the season?
Yes. I saw a piece yesterday from basically an informed sports journalist. Oh, sorry, it was quoting him, and it was quoting another journalist who's a City fan who I think is very informed on the thing, basically saying that, yeah, just comparing it to derbies and Chef Wednesday's FFP cases. They had to trawl over accounts. They took a year and a half each, and that was one season's worth of accounting. This is basically accusing us of like 9 seasons worth of accounts being false. So yeah, they predicted 4 years. So yeah, I don't see anything happening with it soon. I think it's interesting that the Premier League and City want to try and keep it private. It's going to obviously play out in front of the Premier League's, an independent panel. It's not like a full courtroom or it's not going to be a public thing. But I don't know whether that will stand. I think there almost has to be public knowledge of it. I can't see just 4 years down the line there just being another statement out the blue saying City relegated or City are cleared. People need more than that.
No, and it's not right on the Premier League if it goes on for another 4 years. Yeah. And then that happens. What about, you got legal cases potentially coming out everywhere, haven't you? From teams finishing 5th in the league, for example, or teams finishing 18th. It's never ending, isn't it? That's why I think you can't go dating back. Me and Adam aren't bothered about you getting stripped of any of the titles, by the way, because neither of us win any of them. So we're not bothered. Adam finished second to Leicester in a 3-horse race, and I finished second to Chelsea. I'm sure Mourinho will love claiming an extra title, and he might want to claim the 2021 League Cup. But no, I'm not comfortable with changing the past from an on-field perspective. I think, look, there's going to be some punishment. We don't quite understand at this stage how big that could be. Moving on, Adam, you winning this title, mate?
Maybe could do. I think.
Do you think you will? Because I know you're quite conservative, and you're nothing like
in
the
my
AFTV
footballing views.
Mob and stuff,
in my footballing views,
you must be feeling very confident. Or had Saturday's result at Goodison kind of dented that somewhat?
No, I don't. It's not dented it significantly. I think over the past couple of game weeks is the first time Arsenal have been like looking at kind of 538 models more likely than Man City to win the title, and I think we ticked over into sort of over 55% relatively recently, which is encouraging, I guess, from that perspective. The fact that we haven't played City just means there's still so much up in the air. Like if we come out of these kind of almost feels like a double header because they're happening in relatively quick succession. If we come out from these games with like 3 points or even 2 draws, really, I think we've got a really, really good shot. The only thing, I don't think we can afford less than 2 points. Like if we draw at home and then lose away, I think that's a significant dent to the confidence and obviously the points total. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling, I don't know if confident, optimistic is probably the right way of putting it.
What defines that optimism more at the moment? Is it the performances of your team, or is it the underwhelming nature of City at the moment?
I think it's 50-50. I think there's definitely something about City that we can all see that something is kind of not quite right at the moment. They're not looking like their imperious self. But I think it is also kind of supported by the fact that Arsenal, if you assume that the Everton game is a blip, and I'm sort of more inclined to think it will be, Arsenal were able to put in pretty comprehensive performances and are getting results in tough games, and tough games where in previous seasons we wouldn't have taken 3 points. Like, how long has it been since we won away at Tottenham, and certainly won away at Tottenham so comfortably?
Who invited you?
Like in
Funny will
years
tell you winning at Tottenham's not for everyone, mate.
No, that's true. That's true. And in previous years, that kind of United game might have gone the other way, but we kind of pulled those 3 points out of the bag there. And even in the City game in the Cup, where we largely rotated and played sort of a semi-weakened side, and City put out a more kind of full strength side, and I thought we put in a pretty decent performance. And okay, you can say we didn't deserve to win it, but I think Ake scoring a pretty decent finish isn't exactly something that is likely to repeat in the league. So I think we can take confidence out of that performance as well.
So you don't think there's any mental knock on from the fact that you've just lost to City in the Cup?
No. I'd be very surprised if Arteta let that get to the players, especially considering a lot of them were rotated.
Jonny, is this kind of almost at its lowest point under Guardiola in a weird way?
There was that question was asked on a podcast I was listening to this morning about, is the current situation worse than the one we were in 1920? I think this one is different though, because it feels somewhat self-inflicted for a number of reasons.
Go.
Well, I think Guardiola, I think a lot of it is down to him. I think he's having a bad season by his standards. I think we showed at the start of the season that we were able to take such a good striker in Haaland, put him in our system and blitz teams. Granted, there were some games where we weren't as fluid as we were last year, didn't have control of the games. And I think that's where it stems from. He seems to have just got himself into a real funk of wanting just total control of the game to compensate for Haaland, but it has made us just completely toothless, and that we can't get the ball to him. And at the same time, there seems to be a lot of unhappy players. Obviously, we can talk about the Cancelo situation, but there's just players in the background like Laporte, Walker, Foden. They've all had some problems apparently that mean that they aren't in the team. And he's trying to come up with solutions with our squad players when actually it just feels like, well, just fix the problems with the unhappy players and get them back in the team, and we can put up a proper challenge for the title. I mean, I think the problems were sort of like underlined by the defence against Tottenham. If you'd have told me at the end of last season that our defence at Tottenham away would have been Walker, Manuel Akanji, Ake and Rico Lewis, because Diaz and Laporte are unhappy on the bench and we've sold Zinchenko and Cancelo, I'd have been like, what the fuck has happened there then? And you almost can't believe that this is the situation we've got ourselves to. And like I say, in so many fans' eyes, I know it's not as simple as this. It feels like just get Diaz, Laporte, Bernardo, Foden back in the team, get them happy again, and we've got a world-class team all of a sudden again. But like I say, at the moment, we just seem so far away from what we used to be.
So is it essentially, is this on Pep? Or is it on, because obviously after you beat us 4-2, you had the kind of big rant after the game, and it felt like a kind of moment where all City might kick on from here. And obviously it hasn't. And obviously Cancelo's gone since then. You had the result at the weekend. It felt like the home game with Tottenham might be a turning point, but it doesn't feel like it's progressed anymore, where he'd asked for this kind of motivation from the team. Is that where it's at as well? He spoke about needing to refresh the team, and I think he has, but the team isn't better than, I mean, what you say there about the names he's leaving out at the moment, I don't think there's an argument you put them all back in and it's stronger.
No, I think there is. I think there is certainly in the defence. I mean, I'd still argue Foden has to play every single game. I think the inclusions of Diaz, Laporte and Foden would lift the team significantly. I think Pep refers to, obviously, mentality, his winning mentality. the hunger there that has gone from City, and I think it has. I've seen a hunger in Arsenal this season, especially after the Tottenham game, that I'd only seen in top title winning teams where like City got 100 points, Liverpool in 1920, where Arsenal did start to seem relentless, where they just didn't look like they were going to lose a game. And I think that really did tick or piss Pep off. And that's where he came out and said that after the Tottenham game. But yeah, there's just he just keeps hinting at unhappy players, and yeah, there just doesn't feel like there's something right going on in the background. And like I say, Pep is trying to sort of come up with solutions with the happy players when, like I said, we feel like the fans should just be trying to get the unhappy players back on board.
Do you think there's any impact on the fact that Liverpool have had a massive dip? You came on the podcast with us last April with Dan, our Liverpool correspondent, and we spoke about the two of you basically inspiring each other to be so good because you knew if you took your eye off the ball, the other one was going to put away. Do you think there's any impact on that? The fact that Liverpool have dropped off so much?
Yeah, maybe.
Your consistency's not stayed at that level.
Yeah, maybe. I think certainly for the fans, we don't hate Arsenal as much as we hate Liverpool and United. So if United were 5 points ahead of us, the fans would be like really angry and thinking, what is going on? And you almost think about the players as well, because the players generated a real rivalry with Liverpool. So again, like I said, if it was Liverpool at the top, you wonder whether they're not as hell-bent on chasing Arsenal down as they would be if it was Liverpool. I was hoping that the recent cup game would have a bit of needle to it, have a bit of bite that would give the City players that
inspiration almost,
the hunger. But it was just such a dead game. Like Adam said, it basically might as well have just not happened.
Adam, do you think there's anything in that? And that's not meant disparagingly to you in any way when we say
No,
that.
it's not.
It's just that obviously they've had this titanic battle with Liverpool. Do you think there is an element to that they might have taken their eye off the ball because it's Arsenal have got into that position at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think it's probably also an element that they didn't see. Well, no one really saw Arsenal challenging for the title this season coming, so they're probably caught unawares a little bit. And there might also be an element of them and probably people thinking, well, it's probably not sustainable both this season and long term. Whereas Liverpool and Man City had that kind of ongoing season on season battle to and fro over the title. So there probably isn't that kind of built up like animus and like motivating factor to, like Jonny was saying, we got to beat these guys, that has been built up over previous seasons with Liverpool. Like Man City and Arsenal, even in individual games, has never really been much of a kind of rivalry because we haven't really been able to put up much of a fight. I think the closest like we Arsenal came to putting up a battle was last season when we lost 2-1 at home. And so I think that says all you really need to know, really.
What's the feeling amongst Arsenal fans at the moment? Is there a fear about City? Just because psychologically, even though they're not at their best moment, you know what they're capable of, right?
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of feeling that everyone has, that a lot of people for a while haven't been willing to say Arsenal are title favourites because there is the assumption, City will get it together at some stage. And I think that's the same amongst a lot of Arsenal fans. I think a lot of us are thinking, we can't call ourselves favourites because City have shown the ability to put together a sort of unbeaten string of sort of like 10, 11, 12, or a winning streak of 10, 11, 12 games. And if they did that towards the end of the season, even though now they're not in the best of form, looking back on it over previous seasons, you couldn't say it's out of the question. So I think there has been, I should say, over the past couple of months, the assumption that Man City will pull it together at some point. But I think that is starting to fade a little bit. I think people are starting to see the kind of gaps in the armour of Man City and looking at them and thinking, okay, they're not the same kind of all-conquering beast that they were in previous seasons.
Jonny, what's the feeling amongst City fans? Is there an expectation, part because of historical performance, that suddenly it'll click in the run-in and you'll put 10 wins together back-to-back or something like that?
No, I don't think so. I was with Arsenal fans before and after that cup game, and I was surprised to hear Arsenal fans' mentality, which is exactly as Adam described. I think that people, maybe it's me being naive because obviously I'm the one watching City, but I'm surprised at how many people think that we can just click into gear. And it's probably like you say, because we have done it in the past from similar situations. But yeah, like there's no expectation. I think the fans are, like Adam says, are starting to sort of like lose sight. That hope of like putting something together is starting to fade. I think the Brentford result before the World Cup was obviously a big loss, but it could maybe be put down as a blip. It was the Everton game, obviously, that happened, but it was a bit of a freak. The United game was obviously a bit of a freak because of the ref, but we still didn't play well. I think it was this Tottenham game at the weekend where you just looked at it and thought, Arsenal have lost yesterday. We've got the chance to go 2 points within them. Their mentality isn't right. They think we're going on a title charge soon. We're playing them in a couple of weeks. City should have come flying out the blocks, just like Arsenal did at Tottenham after we'd got beat by United. If we had any intention of laying down a title race, we should have been 2-0 up by half time or playing with just a lot more intensity. And it was just another nothing performance.
Yeah, I mean, look, my team played much better against you than against Arsenal when we had better personnel back available against you. But yeah, I'd spoke about it on Monday's pod. There's times where, we've beaten you in the last few years and it really has been a fluke. This was one again where actually it wasn't. And I spoke on Monday about no real fear in the latter part of the game, that you'd obviously fear it internally as a fan, but not actually sitting there thinking they're going to score in a minute, they're going to score in a minute. Like, it didn't feel like that. Whereas normally when we play against you, it just feels like unstoppable waves sometimes. Like actually the start of the second half in the reverse game at the Etihad.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's frustrating, is that some games we can turn it on. Like you say about second half against Spurs and when we beat Chelsea in the Cup. But it just seems to be too inconsistent. It just seems to come and go. And teams just seem to be able to keep us out.
Do you, Johnny, do you think you'll catch them, you personally?
This is the thing. I think we easily could, but I don't think we will unless Pep changes something. I can't definitively say either way. Like I say, I think we could win the title if we sort of clicked back into gear and Pep just said, right, back to basics. Let's go back to how we're playing at the start of the season. But the way it's going at the moment, I don't think we will.
Obviously, I asked Adam in terms of his confidence being, is it more because of Arsenal or because of you? And he said it was 50-50. Your feeling is that the same? Is it they're really good, or is it just more about you?
It's more about us for us. After the Tottenham game, when Arsenal played Tottenham, Arsenal were looking imperious, and I have thought they can just throw the Europa League, play the best 11 every week, and they can just go and win this. But like Adam says, we've got to play them twice. They have a real tough run in April. I've always thought if we can be within touching distance going into April, we would win it. But I think, in answer to the question, I think it is just more about us.
Adam, will you throw the Europa League? As an interesting point, Johnny raises there. It doesn't feel like you'll throw it.
No, I don't think so. Arteta's never really, he's not that kind of character, and he's never really shown, even in the early rounds of the Europa League, he still likes to keep a few starters playing. I think we can, though, now with the reinforcements, we can rotate two out of the three midfielders, like 2 out of the 3 attackers, and sort of probably 2 out of the back 4, and still put out a pretty decent side. So I think he will rotate, but I don't think it's going to be a case of like, right, the entire 11 is going to be swapped out.
Yeah, agreed. I don't see that, and it's worth saying. Obviously, you're not in this last 32 stage. You skip right to the last 16. Johnny raises a really good point, Adam, as well, about your kind of April run. I mean, it's worth saying your run up until April is fantastic, by the way. But I picked up something on your away games left. They all look like they've got challenges. Your away games left: Villa, Leicester, Fulham, Liverpool, West Ham, City, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest. That's a tough kind of collection of away games. Whereas you look at City's away games left after yourselves, Adam, Forest, Bournemouth, Palace, Southampton, Brighton, Fulham, Everton, Brentford. Their away games are miles better than yours. That also means that they've got some slightly tougher home games like yourselves and still got to play Liverpool, who might come back to form, for example. Is that an impact for you?
Partially, yeah. Like, I think it's more the places Arsenal have to go than the teams themselves. Like, I mean, is Brighton necessarily a tougher fixture than, or is Liverpool rather necessarily a tougher fixture than Brighton at the moment? Like, I know that sounds weird to say, but I don't necessarily think it is. I don't think Brentford away is going to be an easy place for City to go. And I don't even necessarily think Fulham is going to be like a walk in the park. So I think there are some deceptively tough away trips there for City. But yeah, no, I think it's the Newcastle one that I'm weirdly most worried about, just because of that kind of.
I love that you're worried about game week 35, which happens to be straight after Man City away as well.
Exactly, it's that kind of double run towards the end. I think is going to be when the most is on the line, and the kind of at least the mental hangover that the fans will have from last season, where we just put in a completely inept performance, and that was like the real kind of nail in the coffin of the Champions League hopes. Yeah, I think that kind of 2-game stretch is where I'm most worried about. I would like to think going away to Spurs and winning and beating Liverpool at home previously in the season means that we can go to Anfield and not have that kind of stage fright that Arsenal teams in the past have had there. I think we at least have to go there and not lose if we're really kind of serious about this kind of mentally strong new Arsenal side.
Well, a number of those away games are going to need to be won. That doesn't mean necessarily you have to win at Anfield or win at St James's, but a number of those away, if you don't win another away game, you're not going to win a league.
No, I think that's pretty obvious. Yeah.
It's very different for what's been accustomed. Most of these results after time you go, if you're competing for top 4, take a point, win the home game, take a point, win the home game. Probably one of those big away games, sort of Liverpool, City, Newcastle, there's a fair chance you'll probably have to win one of them, I imagine. Yeah. But it's subject to obviously City's form. And obviously, look, this time next week, you could be 8 points clear. Or if City really shit the bed, it could be worse. Is it, Johnny, if we're in a position next week and Arsenal were 10 or 11 points clear with a game in hand, is it finished? Too much?
Yeah, probably.
So gap at the moment,
I feel like that.
5 points with a game in hand.
What is it at the moment? It's 5 points with a game in hand, isn't
5 with a game in hand, yeah.
The game in hand's Everton at home. I mean, who doesn't beat Everton at home?
Well, who doesn't beat them away, in fairness, mate?
But yeah, I've had it in my head that if Arsenal beat us, you can basically just call it off. If they make it 8 points in a game in hand, which I'm seeing they'll win and make it 11, like I say, unless there's a real shit the bed moment from Arsenal, I don't think we'll come back and win it.
It's a big week. How big do you think that game next Wednesday is, Johnny?
Absolutely huge.
Have you got to win it?
No, I don't think we do. I think we just got to, like I say, just stay within touching distance until April. I think this is why I was so disappointed on Sunday. We'd have gone into the game almost with 2 points. It's a worst case scenario if you lose back to 5. No, it's not unsurmountable, is it? But yeah, I just think we need to sort of cling on, just somehow get a result from somewhere. Just don't get beat. I don't think we can afford to lose sort of either of the games. I think we need to win and draw one. Yeah, like I say, I think we just need to sort of just, while we're in this sort of like bad period, we just need to cling on.
So if you beat Villa, would you be happy with a draw next Wednesday? Would you take that now?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think I would take a draw next Wednesday.
Would that be the same for you, Adam? If you beat Brentford at the weekend, would you take a draw next Wednesday if it's offered to you now?
No, I don't think I would. Because I think if we, like Johnny was saying, I think if we win it, I think not that's it. I would never call it so early, but I would be willing to say much more confidently, yeah, I think we can win it. I think it's similarly to how the sort of North London derby last season felt for the Champions League, even though I know you were saying that there's still many more games to go and Arsenal could have lost that game and still gotten top four. And it would have been the case. We could have done that, but we didn't. I think if we win this City game, sure, mathematically, we can still sort of mess up on the games remaining and City could win the league. But I think it's hard to kind of, it's difficult to put a value on the confidence I think Arsenal would get from winning that game. Not just the players, but I think the supporters would be like hugely
I agree with that.
By a win.
Okay, let's talk a little bit of FPL. Adam, what Arsenal players in your squad at the moment, mate?
So I've got Ben White and I've got Odegaard and Saka at the moment.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I've recently made the switch so I actually only got Saka and Odegaard in last game week, which involved selling Martinelli for a -4, which I know is kind of, a lot of people are talking about doing that at the moment. I think Nketiah would be sort of a nice one to have, but just in the way my team is set up, I don't have a third forward kind of near enough in value to get him. I've got Nonto at the moment, so the kind of stretch up to him is just a little bit out of my price range. And with Jesus kind of not nearly returning, but within the kind of next sort of month or so, I reckon he'll be back in the picture. I'm just not really sure I want to restructure my team like that just now.
What's the expectation on Jesus' return? What we think is mid-March in terms of return to playing?
Yeah, so the talk was that he could be back as early as Leicester away, which is sort of a lot sooner than I think a lot of people were expecting.
That's the first game of your second double in 25.
Yes, but I'm now sort of thinking the Bournemouth home fixture looks like, if that is sort of around the time when he's going to be back to like fitness, that's a pretty nice match to introduce him back into.
Presumably, I mean, by that point, Europa's restarted. So obviously the Thursday after you play Bournemouth and before you go to Fulham in 27, it's a good chance he'll start the 2 Europa last 16 games, won't he? And then from there, maybe.
I think if he's just come back from injury, I don't think he would be starting those games. I think if you're going to start him, you start him in the league. That's just my perspective. Sorry?
Why'd you say that? I just think that obviously the league's more important. Europa, obviously I know you want to do well in it, but it would feel like a more sensible game to ease him into, no?
Yeah, ease him into. I'm sort of thinking like sub appearances, and then it's like rubber stamped. He's ready to go. Let's start him in the Premier League. Because I don't think we want to risk him kind of breaking down again and destabilizing the team further.
Okay. You mentioned this -4 idea, which I'm very much considering in terms of, say, Martinelli to Odegaard. If we use that example because they're at similar value, would you advise for it or against?
It's hard to advise against because I've done it myself. I think the bigger factor now than previously, in like, say, 2-3 weeks ago, people were looking at doing it purely based on their performances and like their kind of how they view them in terms of returns. I think now the minutes factor is a much bigger consideration for people. And I'm looking at it as, having done it last week, I mean, that -4 could repay itself in appearance points alone by the end of the double, like realistically. We've seen Martinelli getting sort of subbed earlier and his performances haven't improved. And although I didn't think Trossard kind of covered himself in glory, he didn't do badly against Everton, but he didn't do anything particularly spectacular. Martinelli didn't have a shot at all, which I think is the first time that's ever happened when he started a Premier League game. And whilst Trossard's efforts at goal weren't great, he still had 2 shots in his sub appearance. So I think the minutes threat there for Martinelli is significant enough to where I consider it.
Can you foresee things like, say, that Everton match at home where he goes, I'm going to put Martinelli on the right, play Trossard on the left and give Saka a break? Or because I think the assumption at the moment is Saka and Odegaard are going to start every game, is the assumption at the moment. How do you see it?
No, I think Saka and Odegaard will start every Premier League game they're fit for. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'd much more think it's likely that, I mean, even at the weekend, I don't think it's inconceivable that Martinelli could be rested and Trossard starts. I'm not predicting it's going to happen, but if it did, I wouldn't be totally shocked. So I think that is kind of the much bigger minutes threat at the moment.
If you were on wildcard, Adam, what three would you go for?
Saka, Ødegaard, and then it probably would be a toss-up between Nketiah if you want to kind of steam into the fixtures over the short term. But if you're looking for a more kind of long-term, don't want to have to worry about it, I would go for someone like Gabriel or Saliba at the back.
Over Ben White for clarity, yeah?
Yeah. I
Because
think there... Sorry, go on.
The other one I was going to say, do people considering that as a -4 right now? Ben White's one of the centre-backs.
I don't know if our defensive returns are likely to be as good to warrant that. Like we mentioned the last time I was on, James, our clean sheet record at home is a little bit kind of
strange.
Weird. We've only kept 2 clean sheets at home all season. So I don't think the defensive returns are, I don't think they warrant it really, unless you were going to go to a Zinchenko maybe, and there's the chance of an attacking return. But no, I don't think I'd recommend a -4 for the defender.
So but if you were wildcard, you go one of the centre backs. So that suggests to me, considering White is cheaper than the 2 centre backs, you've got enough concern that Tomiyasu might come in at some point.
Yeah, well, I mean, like just looking at it objectively, Ben White probably put in his 2 worst performances of the season over the last 2 Premier League games, and he's set a very high bar for himself because I think he's been outstanding aside from those 2 matches. Really, he's just looked off. His passing hasn't been sharp. He's been caught kind of on the back foot positionally a couple of times, and I think he's starting to get exposed a little bit more. And Tomiyasu did nothing wrong to lose his place to begin with. It was only through injury circumstance at the start of the season that Ben White was played there, and he's done excellently so far. I just think, again, sort of the same mindset as why I think Trossard might start potentially this weekend is like, I think the intensity of the City game is going to be such that if you're ever going to rest these guys, now would be the time that you would do it.
Fair. If Martinelli and Saka are both starting and you get a penalty minute 1 on Saturday, who's taking it?
Saka, easily. I think even the kind of sort of, I think it's been tongue-in-cheek talk about Jorginho taking penalties off him. Even if Jorginho is on the pitch, Saka will take them.
Okay. And I know you're obviously delighted with the signing of Jorginho. Always been a massive fan of his, haven't you, Adam?
Yep, always rated him. Definitely thought he was robbed of the Ballon d'Or. Greatest midfield player of his generation.
It was probably a signing that was needed, though. Fair?
Yeah. I think the hyperbole of like Twitter can make you think it was a disaster, and I was being kind of quite tongue-in-cheek when I was saying how highly I've rated him in the past, because I mean it's just fine. It's really difficult to get too excited about. We've signed a experienced defensive midfielder for £12 million to offer cover in a position which we currently don't have any. So it's like, it's really difficult to get kind of too either upset or excited about, because I will recruit another player in that position in the summer. So yeah, we're effectively paying £12 million for a backup DM.
Everton scored straight after he came on.
That is true. That was unfortunate, I think. If you're relying on Jorginho from a corner, then I think you got bigger questions about the tactical setup, really.
Absolutely. Just very quickly, Johnny, what Arsenal have you got?
I've got White, Martinelli, and Nketiah.
Happy with that?
No, I think I'm going to do Martinelli to Ødegaard. Just question, Adam, why did Ødegaard go off against Everton?
He'd been kicked a couple of times, and it was sort of similar to what happened in the United game.
So it was just in sort of injury.
It was just to protect him, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the earliest he's one of the earliest he's been subbed all season. He very rarely gets subbed that early, so I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Yeah, unless the game's comfortable, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess on the outside, it's a very fair question. On the outside, you're thinking, well, you need a goal. You're taking your most creative player off. That's what a lot of people may have seen in that.
Yeah, no, I can get that. But I think it was just a case of he was being kicked quite a lot and he was sort of hobbling a little bit. But yeah, I think it was just a case of making sure that he didn't get injured too significantly. And Vieira does bring a different sort of energy to the game, I think.
Jonny, what's your free City at the moment? You're going to tell me you just got Haaland and don't bother with the rest?
I've got Haaland, Mahrez, and Cancelo.
You still got Cancelo. Are you properly gutted he's gone? Just briefly.
Not like properly gutted. I am disappointed. I did like Cancelo. I feel like I have a sort of like a slightly disjointed view on City players from City fans that don't play FPL, invert City fans that don't play FPL. Didn't really like him that much. Found him really frustrating, but he just got me loads of FPL points, so I seem to like him. He was a brilliant player, wasn't he? He was a world-class player on his day, but did just have some brain farts, and sometimes you would just have to take him out of the team, bring Zinchenko in, calm things down, and then you can bring Cancelo back once he's sort of steamed off. And I think that is one of the problems, actually, in that he did start to have games like that, and Zinchenko wasn't there to bring in.
Yeah.
And I think it's basically all blown up in that Pep's had to take him out of the team, change the formation, and Cancelo's basically said, yeah, why aren't I playing? And yeah, apparently he became so disruptive he had to go. There were arguments at the time about why you're selling our only left back, but I don't know, you just have to trust him, don't you? If he was that disruptive, and you can't really question it.
I mean, look, if he's kicked off at the manager like reported, then it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And what surprised me is apparently Bayern didn't even pay a fee for the loan.
I've seen that, yeah. No loan
CEO
fee.
was saying, which is like you guys were saying, he must have really kicked off if that's the case.
The covering his wages, but yeah, charity FC again. The fees that we sell our players for is pathetic. Maybe not the last couple of years, but before that.
To be honest, Jonny, you sell a lot of players people won't have heard of in the past, people like Lavia and Adozi, and it brings money into the club, mate. Yeah. What's your plan with Cancelo
then? My original plan was to downgrade him to basically a City defender well, I just don't know which one to pick again, as always. And obviously we're just not playing that well, so it's like, do we really want to take a -4 for? I'm pretty set on getting rid of Martinelli for Odegaard or Saka, but I would have to downgrade Cancelo to someone to get Saka. So the question in my head is it worth taking a -4 to downgrade Cancelo to say, okay, when one of his fixtures is Arsenal away? And
I guess it depends what your cover is as well, right? Is important from that perspective.
Yeah, and obviously with the future double game weeks, Everton, obviously, maybe you might want defenders from other teams. I suppose let's cut to the chase. Yeah, the City defense is just very unpredictable again. I think Ake, I've said, is the most nailed City defender. I think that's true, but again, my heart isn't in that statement because I want Diaz and Laporte to come back in. There's been no signs of Ake or Akanji coming out of the team, but what I want to happen is to start seeing Diaz and Laporte playing again, and Stones when he's fit. So, I mean, I can't sort of like wholeheartedly tell someone to play Ake and then be gutted when he gets dropped for Laporte. I still think Ake would be the one to go. I think it is just sort of, I think it is situation dependent. Like if you can get over a free transfer and you've got the ideal free Arsenal, yeah, go there. But I think there are questions now about whether you take a -4 for a City defender.
Yeah, agreed. It's almost a little bit like doing it with sort of, even if say White was an injury dart going into the weekend, I don't know if I'd want to have a -4 for a Gabriel or a Saliba, because the flip is they're playing you as well, Jonny, right? So yeah. Is there huge expectations on that? No, probably not. If you were wildcarding now, I take it Ake would probably be the one you'd go for, would it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, when you look at Akanji's starts, he started every league game apart from Villa, which was just after he signed. Like I say, he hasn't necessarily done badly, but I just think the other centre backs are like just a level above him.
Great.
He's played 16 games and we've only kept, I think, 3 or 4 clean sheets in them. But yeah, Pep just seems to keep playing him. So I can see why people from the outside would think that Akanji's pretty nailed. But yeah, like I say, again, I'm hoping that he'll be dropped soon, quite frankly.
You
And
can
even,
have
and even if he does play, he's not that exciting, is he?
nah. You can have a 3.9 City defender if you want.
Yeah, Lewis. I think he obviously, when he burst onto the scene, had a few brilliant games. I think he has shown his inexperience in the last couple. Um, Again, I just think it's too much rotation going on. I think he might drop him. Walker has to come back in at some point. Maybe.
It feels to me like Aki and Walker have to play at Arsenal. That's my outsider opinion.
Yeah, like if I could pick the back four for the rest of the season, it would be Walker, Diaz, Laporte, and Ake. And then when John Stones comes back, bring him in for whichever one of Laporte or Diaz is playing worse.
Okay. KDB. There's a lot of people come off for Bruno Fernandes this last week. What would you say to those who are thinking of going back?
I can see why you would. I've always had the same opinion of KDB, but he just hasn't provided the same value as other premiums, considering that he's just not a goal scorer. I feel quite lucky this season in that one of the turning points for me in my FPL season is that I had the insight to pick Mahrez over him. But that was only because I was literally watching every minute of City that I just saw and took a punt and thought, you know what? Mahrez is our best player at the moment. KDB isn't playing well. I'm going to go for it. Whether obviously with the choice and a double, I don't know. He's just one of the players that's just in a funk. He just isn't playing well. If it wasn't a double, I wouldn't be going anywhere near him. I think people are quite blinded by KDB. I wouldn't again. I probably wouldn't be.
Would you rather advise people to go to
Mahrez.
Mahrez then? If people have done that and now don't have a City midfielder, would you advise them more to go to Mahrez?
Yeah, yeah. Still, again, like I said, it's just because the goal threat. Just like I said, De Bruyne, especially this season, has suffered very little goal threat. So you're paying 12 mil for an asset that's getting you the odd assist. Mahrez has obviously been in well amongst the goals since he's been back. There's a question, obviously, whether Foden gets back, whether Mahrez gets taken out of the team. I thought he was unlucky to be taken off against Tottenham.
Agreed. I was like, honest. Yeah, okay, thank you. See you, mate.
Yeah, we couldn't believe that anyway, and so I'd be surprised if he was dropped again. But yeah, I'd probably pick Mahrez over KDB still.
Okay. That's very interesting. There's so much more we could have talked about here, but I know we need to close it up very quickly. Adam, who are you intending to captain this coming game week?
If I'm honest, currently the armband is on Saka. Whether I'll have the conviction to stick with that, I don't know.
Johnny?
Haaland for me.
Triple captain?
We just need to start passing to him again.
Triple captain?
No, I triple captain Rashford this week and got
60 points.
Got a lot of abuse from my family for triple captain United players.
If you hadn't used it, do you think you would use it now?
Yeah, probably. Because I think it's sort of widely accepted that this is the period to use it in, isn't it? And if you didn't use it on Rashford, I think you've got to just stick it on Haaland this week and hope.
Oh, you could go an Arsenal player in 25. There's Salah if he can find some form 25. There's other alternatives coming up quite soon, aren't there?
Yeah, true. I mean, yeah, that's true because he didn't expect that double game week in 25. Yeah, I may if you've got Saka or planned for Saka, I may hold it for him.
Have you got any concerns on Haaland, or is it just they've got to find him?
No, like I said, if we were playing like this with him at the start of the season, yes, there would be concerns. But as far as I'm aware, we had a system, it worked. He was fucking brilliant, and now we've all of a sudden decided to stop passing to him again. If once we decide to do that, I think he'll be fine.
Okay. Correct score predictions. Adam, you've got Brentford Saturday. Go for it.
I'll go 2-1 to Arsenal.
Johnny, Villa Sunday.
Yeah, something similar, probably 2-1.
Adam, the big one next Wednesday.
2-0 to Arsenal.
Clean sheet as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Johnny?
But all uber pessimistic City fan says we're going to get beat 2-0 or 2-1. I'm going to hope for a 1-1 draw, though.
Adam, I'm surprised by your confidence. This is you're getting a bit brash, aren't you, boy?
Yeah, I'm surprised myself as well.
I can actually see both games at the weekend being quite tough for both of you as well. Brentford are a dog of a team to play against, particularly if you don't score early, Adam. I think, yeah, similar 2-1. And Villa are capable, Johnny. They're capable. You know that from the last day of last season.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it'll be a gimme at all.
No, they are very capable. And I just wonder if minds might, for both of you, be a little bit on next Wednesday, so massive and stuff. So probably 2-1 to yourselves on Sunday as well, Johnny. Currently, unless the situation changes, I can't see you not winning next week, Adam. I just think you're going to have too much for them. Play with too much intensity and pace and know-how at the moment. But I totally agree with what you say, Johnny. I said similar on Monday that I think put Laporte and Diaz back in at centre-back, and I just think instantly it's a different Manchester City and we'll feel differently about it. But I also don't think he's going to do that.
No.
So at the moment, I would say 2-1 Arsenal next midweek as well. I obviously hope I'm wrong. Thank you both so much. Best of luck for the week ahead, obviously, particularly to yourselves, Johnny. God, that's a bit of a turncoat on the team that might be about to get relegated in the next couple of years or so. Really, really appreciated. Next Clash of the Correspondents we're going to do ahead of Game Week 24 will be Brentford and Crystal Palace with Tom Med and McTavish. I don't know what day yet because I'm going to Milan next Tuesday. And that also means I don't quite know what day we're going to do this Manchester City podcast next week either. But I absolutely promise that we will. I can also confirm we will have Dan Lord and Bradley Parker on ahead of Liverpool and Wolves double game week in Game Week 25 as well. Which leaves me to say thanks again so much to Adam and to Johnny. Cue music, please, Manchild.